At this hour, we repeat, these are the facts as we know them.
And that's when she looked in the rearview mirror.
Some technology from another dimension, another world.
You're still afraid.
I don't know what it was.
No sign of life left except.
This will scare you.
Hello, I'm Shannon Brown, and this will scare you. I've always loved Halloween and spooky things. In high school, I did a communications presentation on the Jersey Devil. Before moving to LA, I was actually an actor in one of the top 10 haunted houses in America. And now I primarily write and direct my own horror comedy shorts. This is a Scary Stories podcast where I can share my love of creepy stories and events with other people. My guests and I will tell you all kinds of terrifying tales about paranormal things like hauntings, possessions, cryptids, UFOs, shadow people, and unexplained events. My guest today is Laura Mosfox. She's a makeup artist, model, and streamer who loves to create, inspire, and help the world experience what true magic is. Her greatest passion is to remind everyone that everything is energy and is connected. Welcome, Laura.
Hi, Shannon. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. And congrats.
I'm excited to talk.
Amazing. Yes. Oh my God, podcast scary time. Ooh.
Yeah, so like I said, I don't know if you remember this, but we went to Maryland together for work last year, and during some downtime, we went to Virginia for some sightseeing.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And Alexandria has a million museums, and we went to a bunch of them, and you mentioned that you sometimes feel sensitive to spirits in some spaces.
Yes, that was when we entered and they had told us that somebody had passed in that room. And I had forgotten what room she was talking about, and I just kind of went by with the tour, forgot about really what she said. I was just excited about all the old things we were seeing. And once we finished with the tour, I knew I felt something weird the moment I went into a certain room, but I just didn't really think anything of it. And then when we were downstairs, you had reminded me and you said, "Did you feel anything or sense anything?" And it actually clicked at that moment. And I was like, you know what? I actually did feel really bad in for a split second in that room. And then it turned out to be the actual room that the lady said, by the way, that's when that person died.
At that moment, I was like, okay, Laura's pretty cool. We can talk about this weird spooky stuff. And we were just hitting museum after museum. And we went to this place called the Lyceum Museum, and we just got in and walked by these big old, I think they're called Fresnel lighthouse bulbs. And we were in a room right off the lobby looking up at this neon business sign, and I saw a movement out of the corner of my eye. So I turn and look, and no one was there. So I kind of, shifted my weight onto the other side so I could see around the corner into the lobby, which is where it looked like that person was going, and nobody was in there either. So I looked at you and I asked if you saw anything, and you were like, yeah. So I actually reached out.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I do. Now that you're saying that, I'm like, oh my God, it's just, I don't have the best memory sometimes, but stuff like this, I can picture myself right back to where I am. So mentally, I am there. And yeah, I remember that museum where I was like, did you was that weird? And I remember we said that. So
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I don't know if we were just amping each other up or what, but I definitely felt that that I had that feeling like when someone walks into the room and you turn to look, and I actually kind of saw something flash by. So I actually contacted the Lyceum to ask if they had any activity there. And they said, hello, I've not heard any stories about the building being haunted. I've asked. So what do you think we saw? Because I don't know if we saw anything. Maybe it was a shadow person. Maybe it was a ghost. Maybe we were just too amped up on each other to...
Well, we gotta also think about where we were. So we were in a museum where they had a lot of old war related. It was a hospital before. So I think that a lot of the items in that museum probably had some type of fixed energy onto them, because even though there wasn't
Mhm.
really known paranoia, it is apparent because I mean spooky things came from spooky places. So,
Yeah. Well, I actually just learned there's a term for
oh,
that called the stone tape
oh,
theory. And that's that objects can hold the energy of like a deceased person basically.
yeah.
So like to your point, like it could have been a sign or a piece of hospital equipment or like a piece of like a war relic, something like that that could, if you believe in this stuff, it depends on who's listening, but if you are a believer, then it is completely possible that one of those items maybe held some energy back.
Yes. Yeah. It's I am definitely a firm believer only because my family has experienced it. I have experienced it. It's something that I don't necessarily share with a lot of people because, of course, right away they think you're crazy or they dismiss you for being paranoid and making it up because there's no facts, there's no proof. But I am a firm believer that if you felt something happen, it did happen. And even though there's no explanation for it, there is a world for what it is, you know, and this will
Mhm.
scare you. So I grew up listening to my mom believed in fear in terms of making sure I was not a naughty kid. And then obviously I grew up to not be a naughty kid. I am a great person, but my mom still likes to scare me from time to time. So
I
I
can't
will start
wait.
off. So my mom was born in Mexico, in the state of Hidalgo. It is a pueblo, which is pretty much a very small town. There really isn't a lot going on in the state of Hidalgo in 1980. So my mom was a child of 5. She had a twin sister, an older sister, and 2 older brothers. They all went to school together, and when they would come back from school, they would have dinner. After dinner, they would go into the backyard and play. The backyard was pretty much an abandoned land area. There were hills, there were mountains, trees, and there was a mini little pig pen. That's what my family had growing up. Um, so they were playing pretty much probably like around all the way from 4 to like 6 they were playing, and usually fog rolls in around 6 or 7. Always usually in Mexico. It's very dark in a way. And my mom didn't want to go back pretty much after playing. Her mom had called out to all of them saying, "Hey, it's getting late, fog's rolling in, come inside." And my mom was very much rebellious and she just wanted to continue playing. So she hid. She ran off, found a little bit of a hill, kind of hid, and just wanted to see if anybody was going to find her or if she, could continue playing. And nothing happened, obviously. She waited there. She was sitting down. But all of a sudden, she just felt not okay. And she got up from where she was sitting and hiding to walk back home. As she was walking back home, she felt something weird behind her. And when she looked back in the corner of her eye, she saw what looked to be a large figure. And when she completely turned around to see what it was, to kind of just figure out what she was looking at, the figure turned into what appeared to be like a woman. My mom described her. And she said that this woman began extending her arms in the air, and it started to like flare her arms slowly back and forth, kind of like in a little, like a weird wave thing with her arms. It's hard to explain.
Oh my god.
And at that moment, my mom noticed she had the longest, creepiest, weirdest nails. She was just like, I just remember her nails. And when I got into focus, I saw her whole body, and she was wearing a long brown dress with long black hair falling, covering her whole entire face. So we're talking the ring status type of figure that my mom saw
Oh my God.
in 1980 when she was 10, when the ring was not going on. So, as a child growing up and then seeing the ring, I was like, "How did you describe this thing?" And it's in the movies. Like, it just made no sense to me. So at that point, I thought, there's gotta be a reason for this. So that's probably where I got my love of, like,
That
interest
is
spirits and ghosts and stuff, you know?
that is
Yeah,
terrifying.
so it gets worse. So
No.
when that was happening, my mom felt like she was not able to move anymore. She felt like she was getting sucked in a way, like she couldn't move, but she was fixated on what she was looking at and she was just not making it up. She just knew what she saw. And then she did everything that she could and she just kind of muscled some type of energy inside her and she just like moved. And then as soon as she like broke away from that, immediate fear, immediate anxiety, and a high pitched scream. A high pitched scream immediately. My
I just got
my
chills.
mom just could not handle what was happening, and of course, that scream was loud enough for the entire family and the pigs to just what happened. So my whole family came out, my grandpa, my grandma, my uncles, my aunts, to help my mom. She was shaking, she was crying, and of course, they all went about in the backyard, big, giant, barren backyard to see if there was anything, and of course, there was nothing. So my mom was given. So it's tradition in Mexico for my family. It is called a bolillo, which is a like a bread, a Mexican white bread, and it's tradition to eat the inside, which is the white part of the bread, to help soothe any type of like fear and anxiety and something that happened to you. So that's definitely something that helped my mom at the time. But she's never forgotten that story and she's told it to me multiple times. And I just couldn't believe it. When I saw the ring, I was like, that's exactly kind of the chick that you saw when you were a kid. Holy crap.
Oh
But
my
yeah.
God. 10 years old is young, but it's old enough for a kid to not like tell a story. You know what I mean? Like I have 4 nephews. The oldest one is 7. He's he's pretty good at you can tell when he's making
Mm,
something up and when he's telling the
right.
truth. And I feel like at 10 years old for a kid to be that petrified, what did she see
Exactly.
that stuck with her, to this day as an adult with adult children, you
Yeah,
know?
and it's something that we've thought about. I've thought about it. I thought to myself, was it a witch? Was it a demon? Was it La Llorona? You know, because
Yeah.
that spirit is very very much in our culture and the description. You know, so
Oh, yeah, and she's one of, like, the wailing women,
right.
right? And if your family heard this, like, guttural
My
scream,
mom screamed,
that
yeah, but it to me, I like, when she told me that story, I also thought of the La Llorona because my mom was alone, she was a child, away from everyone,
Mhm.
there's this woman, it just fit, you know? So, yeah, that was scary. It's kinda scares me personally because I'm, in a way, waiting for something to happen because if it's so apparent to my mom, it was so apparent to my grandma, it's so apparent to my aunts, it's gotta be, duh, right? And they've all had something happen to them, and it would have been minor, like for my aunt, just a couple nights here and there, she'll feel like a presence, like something heavy just on the side of her bed, just, you know, sit beside her, even though there's nothing there,
Mm.
but you could feel that somebody sat beside you. So she has those encounterments sometimes. My other aunt says that sometimes her cabinets get crazy, Yeah, it's just
And those are your
yeah,
mom's
yeah,
siblings,
yeah.
like
That's my mom's twin sister and my mom's older sister. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And for me,
That
I've
is.
never seen, experienced anything, but I will say that I do feel energy. I do feel
Mhm.
something's not right, and yeah, it's apparent.
That is mind blowing. I had chills up my back the
My
entire
mom
time.
told me these stories just so I could remember and make sure I was telling them correctly, and I myself was getting chills. Like my boyfriend was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm sorry, like I'm getting chills because it's shit's scary."
Well, I've got a tale for you. So, on that work trip, we went to a ton of museums and shops looking for things to bring home for ourselves and our loved ones. But what if one of those items contained a demonic entity, one that would harm those closest to us? This is the story of the Dybbuk Box.
Oh.
Kevin Manis owned a small antique and furniture refinishing shop in Portland, Oregon, when a Dybbuk box came into his possession. With the last of the summer heat dissipating and leaves beginning to change colors, Kevin went to an estate sale in September of 2001. Amongst the many belongings sat a wooden wine cabinet. Apparently, it had belonged to a Holocaust survivor who purchased it in Spain before immigrating to the United States. The owner had passed away at 103 years old and wanted the cabinet buried with her. But because of Orthodox Jewish tradition, this wasn't possible. Kevin, realizing it was a family heirloom, offered to give it back to her granddaughter. She refused, stating the box was kept locked away in her grandmother's house because it contained a dybbuk. The term dybbuk comes from Jewish folklore and was written about beginning in the 17th century. It's an evil spirit that enters a living person and possesses them, and in some beliefs, it's the spirit of someone who has died but has not reconciled their sins, and as a result, becomes a demon. Many believe that a dybbuk, like other dark entities, can inhabit a person, place, or thing. In this case, the wine cabinet contained one. Kevin went to refinish the antique wine cabinet and give it to his mother as a gift, so he took it to his shop to work on it. He left the shop to run some errands and about a half hour later got a call from one of the staff members. She was petrified, screaming that someone was in the workshop breaking things and cursing. She said the intruder had locked the security gates and the emergency exit and she couldn't get out. As Kevin instructed her to call the cops, his phone died. He rushed back to the shop and found that the gates were indeed locked. His employee was in a corner of his office sobbing hysterically. Kevin went to investigate and was hit with the strong, unmistakable scent of cat urine as he entered the basement. The lights weren't working, and he realized that the reason his employee heard glass smashing was because all 9 of the light bulbs in the basement were broken in the socket, and then 10 fluorescent tube light bulbs were also shattered on the ground. Kevin never found an intruder and lost his employee after that day because she refused to come back.
Oh my god.
2 weeks later, Kevin decided to start working on his little rehab project. He was surprised to find that when you open the door to the cabinet, a mechanism causes the opposite door and a small drawer to open at the same time. Inside was a 1928 wheat penny, a 1925 wheat penny, a lock of blonde hair bound with string, a lock of black hair bound with string, a small granite statue engraved and gilded with the Hebrew letters that spell shalom, 1 dried rosebud, a golden wine cup, and a black cast iron candlestick holder with octopus legs. Shalom is a Hebrew word meaning peace, harmony, and wholeness, and is commonly used to say hello and goodbye. Are these items meaningless or are they symbolic?
I don't know.
After further inspection, he decided not to refurbish the cabinet, that it just needed a little TLC. Kevin planned to take his mother to lunch to celebrate her birthday on October 31st, Halloween,
Mm-hmm.
which is also thought to be the one full day that the veil between the living and the dead is at its thinnest. Kevin's mom met him at the shop before heading out to lunch. He gave her the wine cabinet and she seemed to like it. He stepped away to make a call, and an employee ran in to get him. Something was wrong with his mother. Kevin found his mom sitting in a chair next to the cabinet, frozen. Her face was expressionless, but tears were streaming down her cheeks. Taken to the hospital by ambulance, it was declared that she had suffered a stroke, which resulted in her having partial paralysis and temporarily losing the ability to speak. His mother said when the doors to the cabinet opened, she was hit with a burst of cold air and knew something was wrong. As she sat down, she knew she was having a stroke and began to wonder if this was death. And if it was, would she see her son before she died? She struggled to speak but couldn't, and desperately wanted to warn her son about what she had experienced. While recovering, Kevin's mom would communicate by pointing at letters of the alphabet to spell things out. He asked how she was doing, and with tears in her eyes, she spelled no gift. Kevin, confused, assured her that he did give his mom a gift for her birthday. She became more upset and spelled hate gift.
Oh, chills.
Kevin then gave the cabinet to his sister, who had it only a week before complaining that the cabinet doors would not stay closed. He then gave it to his brother, who said it smelled like jasmine, but his wife said it reeked of cat urine.
Oh.
Loved one after loved one all reported something strange and immediately returned the gift. Kevin ended up selling it to a middle-aged couple. 3 days later, he found it sitting outside his shop with a note that read, "This has bad darkness." Kevin ended up taking the cabinet home. Then things got worse. Kevin would have nightmares about loved ones turning evil and see hags who would just beat the living shit out of him. When he'd wake up, he'd be covered in marks and bruises exactly where he was hit in the dream. Friends and family who also spent the night at Kevin's house reported the same thing happening to them. Then, shadow figures began to appear in his home. Then, after putting the cabinet in the shed outside, Kevin woke up when the smoke alarm went off in the middle of the night. Upon inspection, there was no fire, but he did smell cat urine. When he went in his house, he smelled it again. Baffled, because there were never any cats on his property, Kevin brought the cabinet inside and tried to do some research but fell asleep. He woke up at 4:30 in the morning when he felt someone breathing on his neck. He discovered the house smelled like jasmine just as he saw a shadow figure run down the hallway away from him. Kevin eventually sold the cabinet, fully disclosing the experiences in his eBay listing. The next owner reported occurrences of burning eyes, illness, strange odors, electronic devices breaking, and their house being filled with small bugs. These experiences inspired the 2012 movie The Possession, and naturally, Ghost Adventures host Zach Bagans had to have it. Zach has a museum of haunted objects in Las Vegas, and as one of the world's most haunted objects, it only makes sense that he would want it. Zach says that there are 10 Dybbuk boxes in the world, and claims that after getting the Dybbuk box inside his museum, holes started to appear in the walls around it, as if something was trying to get out. Both museum staff and visitors have experienced shadow figures, fainting, and feelings of sickness, anger, and anxiety. The Dybbuk box is under a protective casing at the museum, and apparently it's so dangerous that you have to sign a waiver to even look at it. So what do you do with a wine cabinet so evil that even Zach Bagans fears it? You let Post Malone become cursed by it while he sips a beer. That's right. Back in 2018, Post Malone visited the haunted museum. Surveillance footage shows Posty sipping a can of beer and getting a private tour by his friend, Zach Bagans. They enter the Dybbuk chamber, and Zach removes the protective casing surrounding the Dybbuk box and touches it. Post Malone walks over and briefly touches Zach as Zach was touching the box. The two seem freaked out and leave the room. Zach then had a fit of crying, screaming, hyperventilating, and noting that he felt all of the fears you've ever had in your life all at once. Post Malone saw a shadow figure exit the museum and attempted to follow it. In the following weeks, the wheels on his private plane were damaged, resulting in an emergency landing, He was T-boned in West Hollywood, and armed robbers broke into his house looking for him. Post Malone went on the Joe Rogan Experience on July 29th of 2020. In the almost 4-hour episode, they talked about everything, from partying to Post's home in Utah and seeing UFOs as a kid. And of course, his experience with the Dybbuk Box. Post said that he's friends with Zach Bagans. Yeah. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I'm just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that.
So Post said that he's friends with Zach Bagans, and the episode that they filmed was terrifying. That Zach had put the ashes of a woman who died while she was possessed on top of the box. When talking about what happened after that night, he said, "My plane almost crashed, I was in a car accident, my house was robbed, and I had bite marks on my arm. And Zach hit the wall like I've never seen someone in fear so hard. There's something that goes bump in the night there." Does the Dybbuk Box hold a curse? Is it home to a malicious force or entity? Or is it just an antique wine cabinet that happens to be around when strange things happen? What do you think?
I think it's possessed. I think
Yeah?
I think it is 100% what it is. And is it at least protected now, or do people still want to go and mess with it? You know?
So the way that the museum is set up, it looks like the Dybbuk Box is just, it's under plexiglass, so you can't
Okay.
actually interact with it, but you go into the room with it. You can't touch it or really open it. But because he's the owner of the museum and the curator of all of these, possessed, haunted objects, he took Post Malone in there, took the lid off,
Oh no.
and
Yeah.
I don't even know why or how he would come into, possession of the ashes of someone who died while they were possessed, but I guess he wanted to see how the two items might interact.
My God. Yeah, no, that's some terrible stuff right there. No, but whew, scary.
Yeah, so in summation, they do believe, people believe, and it sounds like Post Malone believes that he became cursed that night.
Yeah. I don't know
But
if he got cleansed. Do you know if he got cleansed or anything like that?
I I think he might have, but he did also talk about how he now has a home in Utah, and there's no one around. It's just him, his video games, and his beers. So I
Okay.
think he's found peace, is what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, I think so. He's doing good. Shout out to Posty.
So I do actually have the security camera footage of that night when they were with the Dybbuk Box, and I'll put it on Instagram. Laura,
Okay.
I'll send it to you too so you can see it.
Yes.
It is freaky. It's weird, to see two adults
Kind of
get
freak
that
out.
freaked out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just like, just book it out of a room when, for most people, or if you want to call them skeptics, they just think, it's just a box. It's just a wooden box that had a bunch of junk in it at a yard sale, basically.
Right.
But for people who believe, it could have a dark force in it. And it was enough to scare the shit out of a ghost hunter and a rapper, so.
Yeah, then that's the proof everybody needs.
Yeah.
There.
I mean, America's Angel, Post Malone, believes he was possessed or cursed by it, so
Must be true.
there's your proof.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, if people have a story that they would like me to read on a future listener episode, they can submit it by emailing story@thiswillscareyou.com. You can follow Laura on Instagram, Twitch, TikTok, and Twitter at Laura Mosfox, and find her on YouTube under Moments with Mosfox. You can follow This Will Scare You on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and be sure to subscribe and review. And keep washing your hands and wearing masks, and please make sure you vote this year.
Please vote. Everyone just vote, please. Please vote, please. Please vote.
Please.
For the love of God, vote.
Alrighty. And I don't have a sign off, so for now I'm just saying goodbye.